Alright, first and foremost, we give all praises, honor, and glory unto the Most High God, Yahweh. We do so in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world calls Christ, Yahweh Shai. It's your brother, Chief Priest Al-Azhar Ben Lawyer, aka the Guerrilla Hebrew.
It's the brother Hassan.
And I'm doing this video. We're doing this video to debunk a very popularized false theory that's propagated throughout the earth. That the Irish, of course, had no part in the transatlantic slave trade, like many of their Western European counterparts, that they themselves were victimized by the transatlantic slave trade, and they were this and that, you know, and all of the different devices that the people who are Irish attempt to employ to basically, you know, get out of white guilt, or, you know, try to basically lie and cover up history. So I'm just going to play this clip. It's from a video recently released on our SICARRI Public Enemies channel. It's called Sephardic Jew and Irish Family versus Hebrew Israelite. So y'all just take a listen to this.
You have an appointment. You have an appointment. Well, guess what? You have an appointment. You have an appointment with God. Okay? Your appointment with God is this right here. Go ahead. These that lead into captivity shall go into captivity. Shall what? Shall go into captivity. So you led people into captivity, you must go into captivity. So your appointment is to go into captivity. Your appointment is to be a slave. The Irish were in.
Here it comes. The Irish.
Church service? No, you weren't. No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
He says it and then he walks away. This is the lie that Irish people have consistently told themselves for quite some time now. Again, to try to escape the sins of their past. It's an all-out lie. Okay? We, of course, knew that it was a lie, and we knew certainly that Irish people partook in the slave trade, especially in the West Indies, amongst, you know, the Dutch and the English West Indies. We're familiar with that, right? But recently, I got an Ancestry.com subscription, so I've been doing, you know, just some research on behalf of myself and other brothers, you know, putting together family trees and whatnot. So Spirit just got on me to just type in Haiti, because they have like a search. You can search first, last name. You can also search country, and they don't have a lot of good in-depth historical stuff on Haiti, but they got some stuff, right? So I just typed in Haiti, clicked on it, and I see this name. I see two names here. This right here. I see William I. McCabe, and I see William Isaiah McCrae. These are interesting to me, and the reason why these are interesting is because they're Irish names. I'm of Haitian descent. We predominantly have French names or sometimes Greek names, because they named a lot of us after Greek gods. Some of us have Greek first names, some of us have Greek last names. So, you know, we got a lot of like, there's an influence of Greek mythology within our nomenclature, in certain aspects of our language as well. In Haiti, you see people who have either the first and last name of Hercules, my first name of Adonis, you know, the name my parents gave me. It's also a common last name in Haiti, like you have the boxer Adonis Stevenson, who really just reversed his name. His actual birth last name is Adonis. His name is Stevenson Adonis. So I see Greek nomenclature, and of course, naturally, French nomenclature within our names. I've never really seen Irish, but there are, you know, Haitians with kind of peculiar, atypical Haitian names that occurs. But when I seen this McCabe and McRae, it really puzzled me. So I clicked on it, right? Because you get information about this. This is a guy who apparently was born in Haiti, but moved to Chicago, Illinois, right? Cook County, Chicago, Illinois. And I thought maybe this was a Irish pirate or merchant or something like that maybe moved to Haiti and then went to Chicago. I don't know, right? So you can kind of get a little bit more in depth, and you have the son, William Horace McCabe. So I clicks on William Horace McCabe, and I see race black. So no, this ain't no just Irish dude who was moving around. This was a brother. So that was very peculiar to me. And this is interesting, Florence Brady. Let me see here, because Brady, I want to say that's an Irish name also. It's not giving us information, but I see McCabe. I click on it. He's black, so it's a brother. So I'm like, wait a minute. So I Google searched Irish slavers Haiti. That's all I Google searched in, and I found a very interesting article through the Spirit and Power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua is predicated upon this book called An Account of Murder, Mutiny, and Mayhem, the Concerning Affairs of the Blackest-Hearted Villains from Irish History by the noted chronicler Joe O'Shea. Very interesting, factual information that we're getting ready to get into through the Spirit and Power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua right now. And what we're going to come into understanding is that the Irish people not only participated in slavery, they made fortunes. They made generational fortunes off of slavery, and they transported tens of thousands of slaves to the West Indies, and in particular Haiti. Okay, a very unknown part of history. I've never heard any Haitian speak. I've never heard anybody speak about the Irish participation in our particular slave trade. So we're gonna read this now, and we're gonna start here. It says the Irish hold a unique place in history of the transatlantic slave trade. Now it says white Europeans who were both slaves and slavers, but what you're going to find out when you read this is there weren't much slaving going on of them being slaves. They were enslaving. And this is what we're going to find out. It says transported to the West Indies as indentured laborers after the Cromwellian conquest, right? So there were a portion of them who allegedly were transported to the West Indies as indentured laborers. That's a mutual contract that's agreed upon between two parties, serfdom and things of that nature. It's not the same as chattel slavery. Just look up the definitions of these things and you'll see the drastic differences in the conditions of which they are. Okay, your children are not just born and inherited into slavery, etc. We know these things, right? And it says enthusiastically profiting from the inhuman triangular trade between Europe, Africa, and the Sugar Islands. The Sugar Islands are the West Indies. The top Sugar Island is what? Haiti. All right, or Santo Domingo, or Hispaniola. That's the top sugar island, but in specifics, the western third, which is Haiti. That was the top sugar producer in the world. All right, during the time of the transatlantic slave trade. It says cast as victims and villains as circumstances change. And over 2 centuries of the Atlantic slave trade, Irish merchants, seamen, and financiers built vast, dynamic fortunes at home and abroad. Again. And over 2 centuries of the Atlantic slave trade, Irish merchants, seamen, and financiers built vast fortunes at home and abroad. So you had Irish people that were trading slaves, sailing around, transporting slaves, and financing slave voyages. Literally, this is what Irish people, I thought it was the poor Irish and they were so afflicted and oppressed in the potato famine. Nah, man. Y'all are the same as your Western European counterparts. All of you are slavers. All of you partook in the genocide of the so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian. And all of you have a debt to pay. Thus saith the Most High God. Which is all the esteemed officer Assad here was letting this culture appropriating Irish man know in this video. Right? Let's go back here. Moving on, it says, the many Haitians and West Indians who trace their ancestry back to Africans transported on Irish-owned slave ships are living proof that the Irish have not always been the victims of history. Here again, brothers like William Horace McCabe. You see, what's his other brother's name? William Isaiah McCrae. You see what I'm saying? Moving on. And it was Irish slave clans of Nantes in France, descendants of the wild geese, who effectively ran the trade in humans for the French nobility. So we know the French were the predominant slavers of the people who are of Haitian descent, Louisiana Creole, many people of Martinique, Guadeloupe, French Guyana, people of Suriname, certain people of Trinidad and Tobago, St. Lucia, etc. Right? French nobility. Well, guess what? The Irish were working with them and effectively, as it says, effectively ran the trade in humans for the French nobility. So they were co-conspirators with the French. So the next time an Irish person has the nerve to look at you and say they went through A, B, and C, they were slaves too, you look at them and let them know that they worked hand in hand with the French nobility to enslave the people of the French West Indies, the French Americas period, which will include Louisiana, right? And it says, one Irish soldier turned pirate and saver, Philip Walsh of Ballynacooley in the Walsh Mountains of County Kilkenny, was present at the signing of the Treaty of Limerick on October 3rd, 1691, which marked the end of the Williamite War and the scattering of thousands of exiled Irish soldiers and commanders across the sea or to the continent of Western North America. Now watch. We're going to get into this, right? It says, by the early 1700s, the French port of Nantes, with a large, close-knit, and hard-working Irish slave trading community. Again, a large, close-knit, and hard-working. I want to know how you're hard-working slave traders. Your work is hard, finding people to actually work hard for free.
To actually work hard.
That's a tough job, right? That is insane.
Yeah.
But mind you, it was large and close-knit, because you know how Irish communities are, even here in America, United States of America now. They're large and they're close-knit, right? But they were all large and close-knit for what purpose? The purpose of trading so-called black people, right? And it says, became the chief slaving port of the kingdom of Louis XIV. The chief? That means these Irish people had a whole lot to do with what happened to us as Haitians.
Okay.
A lot to do with it. They were right there with Napoleon.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? The Sun King. It says, it was said that half of the ships that sailed out of Nantes at the time were owned or stocked by Irish merchant families. Half. Now it's going to list off names. Joyces. So these white people with the last name Joyce, Walsh, McCarthy, O'Shields, Sarfields, O'Riordan. All right? Especially when you deal with Joyce, Walsh, McCarthy. These are some of the more popular Irish names shared by large families of so-called white people. Manufactured goods, guns, textiles, liquor, and knives were brought from Nantes to the slave coast, exchanged for slaves who were transported to the French colonies of Guadeloupe, Martinique, Saint Domingue, which is modern-day Haiti, where they were sold for sugar and tobacco, which can be returned to Europe. This is how the transatlantic slave trade worked, right? And we got to understand, the tribe of Levi, we are Hebrew Israelites,
That's right.
as blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians. The tribe of Levi are the Haitians, but it's not just limited to Haiti. We got to understand the people of like name Guadeloupe, Martinique, Louisiana, French Guyana, certain of the people of Suriname, Trinidad, Tobago, Saint Lucia, even Dominica, right? Some of us went there. There was a large diaspora of so-called Haitian slaves in certain areas, man. Even some of the Afro-Argentinians, certain people in Brazil, go all the way back specifically to this same crop of slaves that was transported from Benin to the French West Indies. All right, so that has to be understood that we would all fall under the category of the tribe of Levi. But that's how the transatlantic slave trade worked. Goods would be manufactured in Europe, took to Africa, traded with Africans for slaves, and then brought to the Americas, where they would then be sold for the things that were being produced in America, like tobacco and sugar, and that would be brought to Europe because that's what Europe had a demand for. And that was what was making Europeans filthy, rotten, rich, and building empires and fortunes of wealth that they are living off of to this self-same day.
Okay.
Right? Now it says the Irish built fine homes on the Isle of Fidel, which still stand today. That's fine homes, 300-year-old homes off of the free labor of Haitians, which still stand today. Free labor of Haitians with land that they stole from the tribe of Simeon, the indigenous peoples of that island who are known today as Dominicans, which still stand today, but the profits were spread far beyond Nantes. They made fortunes for the ports of Bristol, Liverpool, and Amsterdam, so they were making the Dutch rich and the English rich and the French rich, and they were all breaking bread with the Irish. So the Irish, though they didn't have as much power as the more mainstream Western European powers, like a Spain, like a Portugal, like a France, like a Britain, like a Netherlands, they still were the runners for all these people instead, you see? And they made themselves rich off of that. It says, to their great credit, look how this devil is writing about them. He's writing about their exploits and slavery as if it was an accomplishment for them, right? It says, to their great credit, the merchants of Belfast, Ireland, under the future United Irishman William Putnam McCabe, refused to take part in the inhuman slave trade. I call BS. Why? Because the name of the brother that sparked this whole thing, last name is McCabe.
Yeah.
I call BS on that, right? Now, it says, however, the merchant princes of Cork. Here's the interesting thing about Cork. My mother's family is from Cork, right? So I'm very familiar. And a lot of Irish people, the majority of Irish people that you encounter will tell you that their family is from Cork. The majority of them. More than you'll hear a Dublin or a Belfast, you'll hear a County Cork. I guarantee it. However, the merchant princes of Cork, Limerick, and Waterford profited by victualling, right, meaning selling the ships, feeding the slavers and slaves alike to great reward and family fortune. A lot of this old Irish money comes from enslaving Haitians, man. This has to be understood. And we can never let them again get away with the rhetoric that they spew when they try to escape the sins of their foreparents. When they try to act like they were not co-conspirators with the other Western European powers with this rape, robbery, and murder of blacks, Hispanics, and Native Indians, because they very much were. You got a point out?
Yeah. This is Isaiah chapter 29, verse 15. I'm reading the NLT. It says, "What sorrow awaits those who try to hide their plans from the Lord."
You see, they're trying to hide it. Now, when you hear the narrative about Irish people, they refer to them as what? The niggers of Europe. That people put them out as if they're this marginalized and oppressed group of anomaly white people, when they're not. They're the same as all the rest of them. Again, like I always bring up, if you take a look at the New York Police Department, arguably the most corrupt, the most brutal, the most murderous department of police officers and organization period ever assembled, who has had a reign of terror over the blacks and Hispanics who are inhabitants of the 5 boroughs of New York City, are predominantly made up of Irish people, right? So you mean to tell me these people are as oppressive and as racist and as evil towards us as they are, yet we're to believe that they are also oppressed?
And that's another point too. It's so crazy how these Irish people try to play the victim. When, let's just say that they were slaves here in America. Well, what about Oliver Cromwell? Are y'all familiar with Oliver Cromwell? What was he doing to the original inhabitants of Ireland? He was killing and enslaving them. He sent hundreds of thousands of so-called Black Irish to various slave places.
Well, yeah, and that's what has to be taken into consideration as well. The people who were slaves in Ireland were actually Black Irish people. Okay, and what are you going to say? That that's a conspiracy? Here's the thing. Like I just mentioned, my mother is from County Cork. Her parents told her that there are Black Irish people and that she was stupid for not knowing. They used to tell her when she was young. My mother's told me this account several times. When she was young, they would ask her the rhetorical question that was just a poke at her intelligence, that she didn't know that there were Black Irish people. So who did Cromwell exile and who was being enslaved? Who were the true Irish slaves that were being enslaved? Oh, the black ones. The black ones. It's very clear and concise, but you guys can try to cover up history all you want, but through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, the Most High, in the name of His Son, you're being revealed.
Yeah.
Right? More on that?
Yeah. It says, "What sorrow awaits those who try to hide their plans from the Lord, who do their evil deeds in the dark. The Lord can't see us," they say. He doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, well, guess what? The Most High is revealing you.
Yeah.
He's revealing you.
Yeah.
And you're boasting of your satanic exploits, and you thought us niggers would never find out. Well, guess what? We finding out.
Okay.
And I'm going to hold every Irish person accountable the same way I hold every French man and every other damn white man accountable.
Okay.
Right? Go ahead.
Okay. This is Luke 8:17. "For nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest."
That's right. It's coming out about y'all. Go ahead.
"Neither anything hid that shall not be known and come abroad."
That's right, man. Okay. Now it says again, huge family fortunes. No, that's why I already read that part. No, so like a huge family fortunes were built in Cork. The city center was rebuilt, and some of those dynasties that were built on the backs and bellies of millions of slaves are still with us today. See that? And it so went on for decades, with the wealth of nations and empires built up on unimaginable human misery. Antoine Walsh was until he was comfortable enough to retire to an office job on land, a slave ship captain. The voyage from France to East Africa and then across the Atlantic to the Caribbean was long and perilous, and those making it faced everything from disease and foul weather to the possibility of piracy and mutinous human cargoes. By the early 1730s, Walsh had seen enough of the disease-ridden coast of East Africa and the dangers of the Middle Passage and promoted himself from slave ship captain to slave merchant. Antoine had been lucky enough to avoid bloody below decks uprisings that claimed the lives of many slavers, including some of his employees and relatives. In 1734, the slave ship La Venturier, I believe, outfitted by Walsh's father-in-law, Luke O'Shiel, spent nearly 4 months moving up and down the western African coast looking for slaves. At Oueda, on the coast of Benin, which is the predominant place where Haitian slaves came from, Benin, Oueda, which is just a corruption of the Hebrew word Yahweh or Judah, because that's the kingdom that we were from, the kingdom of Judah as Levites. It says the captain, J. Shaughnessy, went ashore to trade, leaving Barnaby O'Shiel, Antoine's teenage brother-in-law, in command of a crew laid low by fever and dysentery. The slaves took their chance and broke free, right? Because it's in our spirit, especially so-called Haitians, to rebel, right? It's in the Bible about us as Levites. It says, cutting the barely conscious pilot's throat and locking the other invalid soldiers below hatches. It was up to young Barnaby to rally the 5 sailors who could carry a gun. See that? We went to the, the standard form of warfare, cut his throat. But of course, how does Esau get his upper hand? How does the white man get his upper hand? He takes it to projectile weaponry, right? The 5 sailors who could carry a gun, and in the ensuing fight to regain the ship, 2 crewmen and 40 slaves were killed. How were 40 slaves able to be killed? Because these guys had projectile weaponry. In commercial terms, they had lost 1/6 of the cargo, and Captain Shaughnessy was forced to tie up at Wada until he had collected 480 native men. So they killed 40 slaves, then they went and collected damn near 500 more. Men, women, and children to transport in chains to Saint Domingue and Martinique. So-called Haitian, tribe of Levi, man. Yeah. Both Barnaby and Shaughnessy survived to have careers as slave captains for Antoine. Antoine Walsh would suffer a major setback in 1748 when he attempted to monopolize the French East African slave trade. See, it didn't work. This trading them East Africans wasn't working. Why? Because Israel was not really over there like that. Sure, some of us were scattered there, but we weren't really over there. The Israelites were predominantly in West Africa, which is why that they were so successful in trading us as slaves, because of the curse of Deuteronomy 28 and the prophecies that we fell under, right? It says his business rivals forced him out and he left France to manage the family slave plantations in Haiti. So these Irish people had family slave plantations, plural, in Haiti, where he died in 1763. 10 years later, or earlier rather, in 1753, Antoine had been ennobled by King Louis XV of France, and the family estates of the Lower Loire were consolidated by royal letter patents into the Comte de Saran. The Walshes were henceforth, basically they were made noble in France as Irish people, right? It says the exile Irishman had personally bought and sold over 12,000 African slaves, right? And launched 40 cross slave voyages, cross-Atlantic slave voyages. He was the greatest or worst of the Irish anti-slavers, far outstripping rivals of the O'Riordan brothers. So he was the top. He 12,000, just him and his family, 12,000 from West Africa to Haiti, from Benin to Haiti, right? The Riordan brothers, who had family back in County Cork. The Roaches, originally from Limerick, where their extended clan included the Arthurs and Suttons, managed a mere 11 slave voyages with around 3,000. So you had smaller guys that were doing about 3,000 slaves. You had him. So you have literally, when you add it all up, tens of thousands of slaves transported from West Africa to Haiti by the Irish. Period. This is just amazing, man. So if you could give me 2 Corinthians 2:11.
This is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 11. It says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices.
We're not ignorant that he's a damn liar. So we can't let them paint this narrative about the Irish people and allow that to pull wool over our eyes, that they are also participants in our downfall, our destruction, our enslavement, and our murder, because they in fact are. They are not suffering with us. All of that madness that they're trying to bring, this oneness and black and Hispanic and white trash are all the same. No, that's all mad. These people had fortunes, generational wealth built upon your back, your blood, your sweat, your tears, the death of your ancestors, piled in cargo slave ships and shipped across the world. So no, they're not with us. So we shouldn't be ignorant of that. You have some of our people who are so ignorant, who are trying to be inclusive towards Irish. And when you even look into the origin of the RBG flag, which I know is going to hurt some of y'all, but you look at the origin of the RBG flag, the green in the RBG flag stood for the Irishman. The Irishman that also was an enslaver of West Indian black people. How counterproductive is that? Revelations 13:10.
This is the book of Revelations, chapter 13, verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity.
So the Irish led black people into captivity, they got to go into captivity. Plain and simple. Go ahead.
He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword.
He that killed with the sword must be killed with the sword. They had to murder us. We just read about during that slave revolt, they murdered 40 slaves. They got to be killed with the sword. Read on.
Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
There you go. Right. So all praises to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai for revealing these damn devils. You got anything else, Doc?
No, I mean, that's why, that man is sin, just, being revealed.
That's right. All praise Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai. With that, again, we will give all praise to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai and say Shalom.
Shalom.